Hi there, I'm Kerry Allman. I am the Internet Strategist for the Diocese of Olympia, and I am doing a presentation on Google Analytics and SEO. What we will cover in the first part of this is how to create a Google Analytics account, how to add the tracking code, how to configure the Google Webmaster Console, and how to find the basic analytic data. And then we will also cover a little bit on SEO. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create and install Google Analytics on your website. So what you want to do first is you need to create a Gmail account that is unique to what you want to do. Do not use your personal Gmail account, because that will create problems for you later on if you decide to go to a different organization or the person who set this up leaves and does not give you the access information. So it's better to create an email address that is organizational based. And for our particular use here at the Diocese of Olympia, we've created an account called ECWW Analytics, and that is the only account that we use for doing our analytic information, and that's all we use it for. So I strongly urge you to do that as part of your installation process for Google Analytics. So we will assume that you have actually done this, and you have now created, you have your organizational account. So now we're going to set this up. What you do is you go to analytics.google.com and you log in to your account, and you will see something like this. If you go down here to admin, and then you will go here and you will create an account. Okay, so what you want to track is you're going to be tracking a website. You can give it any name you want. This is for your information. It's not something that Google specifically tracks, so you can give it whatever name makes most sense for you. The website name, that would be, again, a name that you would come up with that makes the most sense for you, and Google does not necessarily track that. This part here, the website URL, this is the one that Google really wants to know about. So this is where you actually put in the URL of your website. This is extremely important right here. Whether or not you make it HTTP or HTTPS. HTTPS is secured socket layer. That means that any time that you access the website, the data is encrypted. This is becoming the new standard. So if you have not converted your website to HTTPS through a SSL certificate or some other type of product, I would strongly urge you to do that. In any case, you pick which one of these your website currently is operating under. So we'll say that. Then you will put your website address in here. You can select a category. It's not necessary, but you can if you wish to track that. The time zone, this is important. So I would select your right time zone. Now the data sharing options. I like the idea of unchecking all of these because there's just too much information I think that they collect, and with the issues with Cambridge Analytics, I would just assume they did not collect any more information than they have to, so I always uncheck these, but again, that's your choice. And then you click on Get Tracking ID. After you have done the Get Tracking ID, you will get a page that looks similar to this. After you have submitted your request for a tracking ID, you will get a number like this, and then you will also get information here on this tag here. This tag is what has to go into every page on your site. If you are using a CMS such as WordPress or Drupal, you can actually use plugins or modules that they supply to embed the tracking ID, and it will then put this information automatically on every page for you. If you are not using WordPress or Drupal and you're using some other form of CMS, you will need to contact your developers and ask them how to embed this code here into the site. One way you can do this is that if you use Google Tag Manager and you tie Google Tag Manager to your analytics, you can then embed this piece of code into the Tag Manager, which will do essentially the same thing. For our demonstration purposes, I'm going to use this tracking ID, and I'm going to put this into our WordPress site that I have developed for this purpose. So you copy this tracking ID here, and then you go into your website, and I've already pre-programmed this plugin to do this in WordPress, and the plugin that I am using, go into plugins and install plugins, is called Google Analytics for WordPress by Monster Insights. If you have a Drupal site, there is actually a module called Google Analytics that you can install on your Drupal site and implement the same process on the Drupal site using that module. In this case, we're going to use this module, and we're going to go here to Settings. Now, it will ask you to authenticate with your Google account. Do not click on that, because what that does is that will generate a brand new Google account code for you, which will be different than the one that we just created. So what you want to actually do is go click here to authenticate manually, and when you do that, it will open up this part here that says manually enter your UA code. You paste that code into here, and then you save changes. Now, the other thing that it will say here, warning, if you have used a manual UA code, you won't be able to use these reports. Well, that's the reports for Monster Insights. We're not really interested in that. We're using Google Analytics. So all I'm using Monster Insights for is basically a vessel to be able to enter the UA code. So that's the only reason I'm using Monster Insights. So do not worry about the fact that you get this warning, because all you're trying to do is just tie the analytic information into your website, which is what we're using Insights for. So then you will save your changes. And now we will go back and we will finish entering the analytic information here to finish out the property that we created. So when you go back to your information on this particular website that you have now added the Google Analytics to, you will see there are three categories. There is account, property, and view. Think of account as your administration site. So this is the main container for all of this information. Think of the property as the website or the code location for your property. And then the view is actually where you can drill down and look at specific information within the property. So to finish our configuration of this, if we go here to account settings, you will see that we have already created this. There's the account ID that we put in, the account name. All of these were turned off. Then if we go back here to property, we again go here to property settings, And you will see that there's the information that we have set up there. Down here where it says use enhanced link attribution, you want to turn that on. The reason for what this does is that if you have two links going to the same page on your website, it will tie them together for analytical purposes. So for example, if you have a Contact Us link at the top of your web page and you have the same contact link in the footer on every page, it will tie those together so that no matter where your user clicks, they will tie them together as a single piece of information. Okay, and then you will come down here and you will hit Adjust Search Console, which we will do in just a moment. Here you will create a view, and in this view you have the default when it's first set up is it will do all website data. Well, you can actually drill down and narrow down what you actually want to look at. By default, when you first create this account, you will get a view which will collect all the website data. One of the things that you need to do is you need to add a filter to remove the IP address of your main location. So for example, in our office, we have a number of people who will be working on our website and doing testing and entering content. We don't want to add that information to our analytics information because that will skew the data. So what we want to do is we want to filter out anyone who accesses our website from our office location. To do that, you go to Filters. You want to add a filter, and we will call this Exclude. Our office is affectionately known as D-House, so we'll exclude the D-House. We will select the filter type. We're going to exclude, and we're going to exclude traffic from this IP address, and then we put in the IP address here. You find this IP address by going to something like, what is my IP? And what that does is when you run whatismyipaddress.com, it will come back and tell you what your IP address is. You copy this number, go back to your analytics, you put that number in here. I want to say that that begins with, and then save. So now what we have done is we've created this filter so that when you look at your data, you want to use this filter as part of your data setting. Another piece you want to do is you want to click on your view settings here under your view, and down here you want to exclude all hits from known bots or spiders because that will again skew your data. You may want to keep that information for some reason, so it's actually your decision as to whether or not you want which bots and spiders have come to your system regularly. I usually just keep it checked off. That's my choice. The other thing that you want to do on this view settings page is you want to come down here to site search tracking. You want to turn that to on. And then what this does is you are allowing to collect data for search queries from your users. Now, if you are using WordPress for your site, you will just put the letter S there. If your site is a Drupal site, you will put search there. If you are using some other form of custom CMS, you will have to contact your developer and find out what is the phrase that they will use for the query parameters. In our case, we're using a WordPress site, so I just put in the letter S, and then I save. The next thing we need to do is we need to tie in the Google Analytics that we have created for this account to what is referred to as Google Console, which used to be Google Webmasters. And what Google Console does is that this will give you access to information that Google knows about your site, and also some information that Google Analytics in and of itself does not show you in their analytical information. It will give you such information as to alert you if Google thinks that your site has been hacked, if you have any broken links. One of the nice features about it is that it gives you the ability to temporarily remove URLs from the Google search function if you have something that you no longer want to have Google index. It allows you to submit a sitemap through either Yoast SEO if you're using WordPress, or XML sitemap if you're using Drupal. It also is a place for you to be able to gather search query information into Google Analytics. So what you want to do is you will add a new property, which will be the property that you created from the analytics. For our demonstration, it was the Clergy Transitions dioceseolympia.org, so this was the property I added. Once you've added this property, then you will manage this property by adding or removing users. You want to be able to have more than one user for this account in case something should happen with user A. It becomes difficult to connect the two back if someone leaves and does not give you that information as to the account. So that's why you should have more than one user on the account. So you want to add or remove users here. But if you come up here to our Search Console for this particular property, you will see these different options. But what we were going to focus on here is come down here to this, and we want to verify the ownership of this property. And we see that this has already been verified. But if it had not been verified, then we would go back into the analytics, come back here into your admin, go here to property settings, and down here in the bottom it'll say adjust Search Console. Here's where it will tie in to the Search Console for the Webmasters tools. I have already set this up, but you can set this up here where you tell it what is the URL, and then it will save. You will come back here to the property here, and it will give you the option of what are you trying to tie together. You will click on that link, and that is how that ties together. As we look at the main Google Search Console page for this particular property, Clergy Transitions, you will see the navigation bar here on the left. The important things to look at are the search traffic. This is where the search analytic information is kept. As you will see, there's not a whole lot right now, obviously, because this is a very new property and they haven't collected enough data to show. But here's where you can select by queries, by pages, your clicks, your number of impressions, your click-through rate, position. The interesting thing on this, however, is that the data is only kept for the last 60 to 90 days. So that is something that you might want to keep in mind when you're looking at the search analytics for what search queries have been used on this site. The other place here that is interesting is the remove URLs. This is that temporary removing of URLs from the crawl that Google does to index your site. So this is where you put those in. And then the big one here is the crawl tab. And this is where you get the messages that Google sends regarding the indexing of your site. So crawl errors, for example, because again the site is so new and recent, they have not detected any errors either on the site or URL. Then you have your crawl stats, which tells you how many pages have been crawled per day, how much kilobytes have been downloaded. This one here, Fetches Google, this one is the one that's really important because this is the site where you tell Google to index the site. And so you leave the URL blank to do the home page and everything underneath it, and you just click fetch. And what that will do is that sends a message to Google asking them to index the site. And it happens not immediately. It will happen within a few days because that's the Google policy. But it does eventually happen. So then if the other thing is sitemaps, which I'll get to in just a second. URL parameters, don't worry about that because it actually says that if you don't know what you're doing, don't mess with it. So word to the wise. Security issues, those are if they've detected any hacking on your site, this is where you would get that kind of information. But going back here to sitemaps. Okay, what a sitemap is that is a special file that is generated that tells Google what are the contents of your site. And so that is submitted to Google when you do the fetch. And then Google uses that sitemap to determine how it's going to crawl and index your site. Now, when you are looking at sitemaps, there's a number of different options to generate sitemaps. If you're using a WordPress CMS, you can use the Yoast SEO, which is one of the features that's built into that. If you are using Drupal as your CMS, there is a module called XML Sitemaps that will do the same thing, is creating the sitemap. But what we will do here is we will actually generate a sitemap for this that we have created for clergy transitions. So if we go here into SEO and we go to Features, under the General tab, you will see right here XML Sitemaps. You want to turn that to on and then save changes. And then that actually generates a file which is called sitemap.xml. So if we go back here, and for example, let's look at one of the other ones where I've used Yoast for this. And indeed, there it is. It's called sitemap_index.xml. So if we save that name, for example, and we come back here into Search Console, going back up here to Clergy Transitions, crawl, sitemaps, we can now add or test a sitemap. We will drop that name in, getting rid of that leading slash. We will go test. Test is complete. View test results. So it did generate the test map. There says there's number 5 children, 5. That's correct. Close the test. So I believe that that now verifies that that is indeed the correct sitemap. So now we can just submit this. And this will take a while now to refresh. As you can see, it's now been populated and it will get back to us in what we refer to as Google time to let us know that the site has been indexed. The one last piece that we need to do to tie in the Search Console with our website is we need to tie in the console to the SEO analytics. And that is done in using the Yoast SEO, if we're doing WordPress, by going to Webmaster Tools, and then you will see Google Verification Code. You will get that in the Google Search Console. So if we click here, that will come to here. You then click on HTML tag. You will see this tag is generated here. So what we will do is I'm going to go to show me an example, and then I'm going to copy everything between the quotes. You don't want the quotes, but everything between them. And then go down here and say verify, so that this is now verified. Well, we haven't done that because we have to go back into here now that we have that, and we put that into here. We say save the changes, and now it is verified. One last thing about sitemaps. If you're not using Yoast SEO, or you're not going to use the XML sitemaps module in Drupal, you're using some other CMS, you will have to generate a sitemap somehow. And the best way to do that is to go to a site called xml_sitemaps.com, and this will allow you to enter the website. If it's under 500 pages, it's going to be free. And this will generate a file for you, and then you have to take this file and you have to upload it to your site. Again, your developer will know where that file needs to go, but that will help you to solve the problem of creating a sitemap. I realize that a lot of what we've talked about is probably as dry as Canuga toast, and is probably not exactly the most exciting stuff to talk about, but what I have found is that setting up analytics and tying all of these things together, which you need to do a really effective job in doing analytic work on your website, is important, and it is rather confusing and time-consuming if you don't know what to look for. So I'm hoping that the previous part of my presentation will be helpful in this regard, and now we will go into the actual Google Analytics part. So now let's get down to actually looking at information inside Google Analytics. Now what Google Analytics does is it collects a whole lot of data about your website, and then is able to present this in ways for you to be able to find out where your users are coming from and where they're going to on your site. The other thing that Google Analytics can help you with is if they're not going where you want them to go, then you can try to figure out how to adjust the user experience to get them to go there. And you can also be able to determine from there what the metrics are that matter to you in what you are trying to do. Because there's a whole lot of different metric information on there, but there's only maybe certain aspects of that information you really care about. I have broken these down into 3 areas: attract, engage, and retain. And when I refer to attract, I'm talking about what is effective outreach. How are you getting your message out there to people? Engage, or do you have the kind of content that is keeping people interested and giving them the information that they want? And then in retain, this is where, how are we getting these users to come back and interact more with your site? So I have found that there are 6 pieces of data that are really important for each of these 3 categories: attract, engage, and retain, and there's actually 2 pieces for each one. So let's go with the first one here. Attract. Okay. What I'm looking at in attract is I'm looking at sessions and page views. Now when we refer to sessions, that means that is one person who's making a visit but doing multiple pages. So if you have one person coming to your home page and then going to your about page and then going to your staff page, that all is one session. And that session will stay active unless they actually log out, or there is 30 minutes of inactivity between the time they came on and the time they went back in again after their pause. For page views, that is one person browsing one page. So if I go to look at your home page and then I go look at your About page, and then I go look at your Contact page, that's considered 3 page views, but it's only considered 1 session. So I just wanted to clarify that. So your sessions are always going to be less than your page views. And for this effective outreach to happen, you really want to see an increase in both over time. You want to see an increase in your sessions and see an increase in your page views. When I'm talking about engagement, engagement is how are we generating content and information that is keeping people's interest and keeping them attracted. And the 2 items of metrics that I look at here are bounce rate and average session duration. The bounce rate is the percentage of people who will arrive at your site, visit 1 page, and leave. And every page will be different, obviously, but 40 to 80% is an average bounce rate. That is actually okay. If the bounce rate is higher than 80%, that might be something that you want to look at, because people are obviously not staying engaged if they're only going to their 1 page and then immediately bouncing off. However, I will show you an example that might not necessarily be the case, and we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. The average session duration is the time from when the person first clicks onto your website, from their arrival, until they exit the website at the end. So for effective content, you want your bounce rate to drop over time, and you want your session duration to increase. And you can obviously compare this information on a page-by-page case as well as the overall site, and we will show that here just shortly. Finally, the retention part. This is the part of how are we able to get people to come back to the site again and again. And you find that information by looking at your top landing pages and your top exit pages. Your top landing pages is where did they first come into your site? Did they come in just from the home page, or did they come in from someplace else? And then the top exit pages, what was the last page that they left? So to make sure that you have effective interest, you want to recognize good versus bad exit pages, for example. What I'm talking about for a good exit page is a thank you page. So say you've had a call to action, and they have completed this call to action, signed up for a program or something along those lines. Then if you have a thank you page that then pops back up on your website saying thank you for signing up for this event, and then they leave, that is actually a good exit page, because you now know that they have completed the task. A bad exit page would be a form or a sign-up page, because you don't really know if they ever completed the task. So if you're seeing a high exit page count on a form, there may be something that you might want to work on there to try to get people to fill out the form, because you don't know just by going to the form if they've actually filled it out. Now, where are all these located? Okay, the attract and engage portion, which are your sessions, your page views, your bounce rate, and your average session duration, those can all be found under Audience Overview on your menu inside Google Analytics. And the retention part is found under Behavior, Site Content, Landing and Exit Pages. Okay, so now let's look at some actual real data, and we're going to be using the analytic information from our main website, ecww.org. And you will notice here that if you go to Audience Overview, you will see here are the sessions, page views, average session duration, and the bounce rate. So there's where you get this information. You can change this to any particular time frame you want. I have this currently set up for the month to date, just to get an idea of the kind of information that I would be looking for. And then also, if you go back down here to Behavior, Site Content, and here's your landing pages. So you see what are the top landing pages, and here are your exit pages. And you can see the information here. Now, I wanted to point out something that will help you to maybe understand how you can look at some of this data and make sense of it. So I'm going to look at, for example, what is our top landing page? Well, our top landing page is our home page, but then you'll notice here, expect visit Episcopal Church. In this month time frame, it has almost 10 times as many sessions as the next page after. Yet it has a bounce rate of 93%. Now that would tend you to think that, like, well, this page is not performing the way that it should. What do we need to do to make this page more effective and a better user experience? Well, it turns out that this is the page that is on our website, which basically is just what you expect when you visit an Episcopal church. It turns out that when you Google, in the Google search engine here, and you type in visit Episcopal, whoops, it's the #1 page that shows up. So in that regard, this information is a little bit misleading as to the fact that, like, it has a high bounce rate, because people are apparently going and getting the information that they want because it's being so highly searched. If you look at exit pages, again, you'll see it's the #1 exit page. So apparently they are just, if you look at this information, they just go in and go out. Well, if you were to go here to all pages and you look at expect visit Episcopal Church, you see those numbers of page views, unique page views, but look at the average time on page. It's 8 minutes and 43 seconds. So what I believe I can deduce from this information is, even though it is our #1 landing page and our #1 exit page, the fact that it has a high bounce rate and the session time here of 8 minutes and 43 seconds leads me to believe that people are searching for they're searching for the page, they found the page they wanted, they read the information in completion, and then they left. That in and of itself, given what this page is supposed to do, may not be such a bad thing. So it might not be something that really needs to be fixed. However, if we wanted to drop the bounce rate, or see if we could possibly get more engagement, we've talked about some of the things we could do. We can put links inside this page to drive people to other pages. But the other thing that we thought we would do was, at the bottom of the page, after they finished reading the article, is to have a link to the Episcopal Asset Map, so that they could actually then find a church in their area if they are so interested, after they've read what they should expect when they come to an Episcopal church. So those are the kinds of things that you can do with this analytical information to make decisions about how users are using the site and how their experience can be improved. Another thing that can be done is you can do customizations, and you can actually customize your dashboard. And I have a dashboard here that has been customized that has all of these 6 pieces of information that I want: the page views, the bounce rate, the average session duration, the sessions, top landing pages, top exit pages, and then it also gives me landing pages with a high bounce rate, which of course here is our expect visit Episcopal Church, and then referring site. So this might be a way that you could customize a dashboard, and you can add the widgets however you want to get those information, and then you can look at those at a glance, and then if you wanted to drill further, you can go into either the behavior or in the audience. I'd like to take just a few moments to talk about traffic source. What traffic source is Google's way of trying to determine how people are actually arriving at your site. A healthy traffic source is 1/3 of your users are coming directly, 1/3 are coming via some type of search function, and 1/3 are coming through some type of referral method. So if you go to Acquisition Overview, you will see this is our particular map of our traffic source. And as you can see, the majority of our traffic is coming from search, which would actually make sense given the fact that our most popular page is what to expect when you visit a church. Obviously, they are searching from that through a search engine. When we talk about direct, that would be this section here in green. What we're talking about is, in this particular case, Google doesn't really know how the users got to your page. They don't know. They know that it was not from a search and was not from a referral. It was not from social media. It probably could have been from a bookmark, or someone told them you need to check out this site. So that's where direct comes from. But it's basically Google does not really know exactly how they came here, and so it gets lumped together into that type of designation. Then the referral is that they found the link from some other site that was referred to them. So it could have been an email blast, it could have been some other type of communication. But as you can see, these four together make up the referral portion. So if you add these all up along with social, that comes to that number. You can get further information on this as if you go to Search Console underneath Acquisition and go to Queries. And this tells you what are the major search queries that people are looking for when they come to your site. You can also go to landing pages here, and this tells you these are the top landing pages that have been reached via a query search. The two big items here is impressions and clicks. Impressions means how many times did this page come up in a Google search. As you can see here from our Expect to Visit Episcopal Church, we've had 13,242 impressions this month, and they've actually clicked on it 886 times for a click-through rate of almost 7%. Another piece of information that you can look at here is social, and social tells you what social networks were used when people came to your site. So Facebook, we had 85 sessions from Facebook, we had 4 sessions from YouTube. So this is another way to find out where people are coming from to get to your site. The last thing I want to talk about is SEO, or search engine optimization. Now there are a lot of tutorials out there that you can find, especially on YouTube, and there's lots of different products out there. I'm just going to touch briefly on the one product that we use for doing our SEO, which is Yoast SEO for WordPress. But in general, I just wanted to cover the very basics of what exactly is SEO and how it can help you. When you think of SEO, what that is a way to help search engines find your content. Because search engine visitors are usually new visitors, and they're usually searching by specific criteria, name and known specifics. And so what you're trying to do is, based upon what you think those search criteria are, you want to set up your pages so that your ranking will be high related to those issues that people are searching for. And since most search engine traffic is coming from Google, Google wants to make sure that that the searcher can find what they want, but they're not going to give their algorithm away. And so that's how search engine optimization helps to give Google the information, the basic information that we think Google wants to be able to generate the query results that we get. And there are really 3 core SEO principles. to remember when you're working with SEO. One is original high quality content. So you want to make sure that the content that you are actually writing is good, because what eventually will happen is Google is looking for results that show authority of knowledge. And so if you write good copy and high quality content, that will rank higher in the Google search function, because they will recognize, based upon some of the search engine optimizations that you tag, that this is actually worthwhile content. And part of this is done by the second point here of content markup. And so you want to use markers within your content to let people know exactly what it is that they will expect to find if they come to this page. And then, of course, the last part, which I touched on briefly, is authority. Google wants to know that the info that they are posting back is trustworthy, and so by putting the right SEO information on your pages, you can let Google know that you have authority in this particular realm that you're posting content in. The other issue that comes up is you might hear the term white hat versus black hat, and what we're talking about there is the different ways in which people will use SEO on their websites. The white hat SEO philosophy is that people are wanting to make sure that they are following the search engine rules so that they can have a really good, long-lasting, high rank for their content, so that when the users are looking for it, they can find that. The black hat SEO philosophy is that basically people are trying to game the system and trying to break the search engine rules to get the rank quickly, but then that eventually ends up that their credibility and their authority is greatly compromised. And when you think of like, well, how does that happen? How do you generate white hat tactics versus black hat tactics? White hat tactics are making sure that their websites are optimized to create a good quality site. They do ethical SEO code organization and code tagging. They organize the website content for both the search engines and the site users. And they basically take time developing the site and developing the content and managing both inbound and outbound links. Black hat techniques, I'm sure that you have seen those many times on other sites. They will do things like called cloaking, where they will show the search engines different results information than they show to their actual human visitors. They will spam specific keywords, overusing keyword phrases to try to drive people to their site, whereas actually the keyword has nothing to do with the content that they're going to. Things like doorway pages, where they will add a website to target specific keywords but provide no value, which is sort of very similar to keyword spamming. There'll be duplicate sites where they will actually steal content from other sites and publish it. So those are the kinds of black hat tactics that you will use with SEO, and those are the kinds of things that will get you shut down in Google search engine or any of the other search engines very quickly, because they're becoming smarter. The search engines are becoming smarter in recognizing the SEO information, and when they come to situations like that and they see that, they will basically ban your site from any search engine results. So you do need to be careful about that. You don't have to necessarily go back and retrofit every one of your pieces of content for SEO, but it would be a good thing moving forward, once you learn and become more comfortable with SEO, to put that information in as just part of your content creation. So what we'll do now is we will actually look at a page again on our ECWW site and give you a little bit of a flavor of the types of things that SEO is looking for and what it can do. If you go into our Yoast SEO, for example, and you go here to content types, you will see these little tags here. You can actually overwrite these, and you can put in your own tag information. What this is this is a variable, and so it's pulling out the variable that's the website is predefined and put it in here for the title. But you can actually change the meta description into something that might be more specific to your needs. The maximum number of characters is 160 for a meta description. For a meta title up here, it is 60 characters, but you need to be cognizant of the fact that mobile will truncate those, so you don't necessarily want to go to the maximum number of characters on that. On old hand-created websites, there used to be things called meta keywords that you could put in the header. Those are actually pretty old school now, and they have now gone to a more traditional SEO solution. So you really can ignore putting in those old meta tags as you move forward. So now if we go to a page here, so this is our About page, and as you look over here on the right, you'll see that the readability needs improvement, which we will talk about here, but the SEO is good. And so this is what I wanted to show you here as to what Yoast is looking for in this regards. First off, if you click on here, it breaks it down into readability and the SEO here. So the readability, it has issues with sentences being too long, paragraphs being more than 300 words, passive voice. That is something that certainly you can be addressed, but I'm not necessarily sure that that really affects your overall SEO ranking when it comes to being found by the Google search engine. I think this part here, the keyword, this is where it's going to be more important to Google. So you put in your keyword here, so Diocese of Olympia, and so we found that here, and these are the reasons why this was a good result, and you can look at those and you can see, oh, okay, these are the kinds of things that SEO will help me with for the Google search engine to be happy with the results that they are looking for. Here, a problem, the focus keyword doesn't appear in the first paragraph of the copy. Well, the problem with that is that if you go up here to the top, we actually put in a quote here, and consider that as the first paragraph, and the Diocese of Olympia is not in that quote. So that is the trade-off that we are willing to make and say, okay, that may be a problem, but we're not going to fix that. But these are the kinds of things that you can use to make SEO work for you. And again, this is just this part is just a very brief overview. But there are lots of tutorials that are going to go into much more in depth on SEO and how you can use that. There are other SEO tools other than Yoast if you are using something other than WordPress, and so those are something that you can look into. But I do strongly urge you to take more interest in SEO and learn how to do that so that you can improve your website. I hope that this tutorial has been of some help to you, and if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact me at kallman@ecww.org. And thank you for watching.